What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the Robin Grappler in Chapter 6 Season 3 and whether or not I think it is worth using after Fortnite patched the cancel trick. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, find it helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more. Let me know down in the comments below how you would rate the Grappler now after this change, and if you are happy or unhappy that Epic ended up making this change. And if you guys would like to use my code in the item shop when getting anything, it is EvolveJake, and it is underneath the webcam at all times. So if you guys were unaware about what the grapple cancel was, I'm going to be talking about how the removal of this affected the item. I'm not really going to talk about whether or not it was a bug, an exploit, a trick, a glitch. Who really cares? It was previously one way, now it is different. That's what I'm going to be talking about. But previously, before yesterday's update, you were able to cancel the grapple or the glider animation for this grappler by switching your weapon basically at the same time as you shot the grappler. So you would hit like those two buttons at basically the same time, and then you wouldn't have to grapple, and you would be able to pull out your weapon faster, making the grappler a much better fighting item because you could just grapple right onto people with your weapon out. And this has been how the grapple has worked for some time in Fortnite. It worked like this, I think, for as long as we had the grapple ones. And even the regular grappler, you could do this to, pull your weapon out faster and kind of cancel that animation. So that has been removed. The grapplers got a nerf as a result of that. And that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. So the fact that this allowed you to cancel the animation made it to where you traveled much faster when using this item compared to the person who has to glide. You could just get around much faster because when your character pulls out the glider, you're a bit slower than just the regular grapple. And then, as I said, you were also able to take your weapon out immediately, making it a much better fighting mobility. And that is the biggest way in which this was affected, I think. The grappler went from being probably the best fighting mobility item in the game to one of the worst. If you try to just grapple on somebody's head now, the fact that you have to take out your glider, hover around to land and then swap to your weapon is just much worse than having your weapon out as you're landing on the person and probably already getting shots on them. Forcing you to deploy your grappler also does make traveling a bit slower, as I said, because just the grapple is quite quick, but when you switch to the glider, you kind of slow down. And with not only is this going to make it to where, you're traveling slower, so you're getting places slower, you're a bit easier to track, you're a bit easy to pay attention to. With the old trick, people could zip around so quickly that it was difficult for some players to track them. So you're easier to track now using this, but you're also so much more susceptible to getting shot by other players because when you do that glider animation, as I said, you're slower, but your side-to-side movement also isn't the greatest. I think pretty much everybody would rather shoot at a gliding opponent than somebody that's just being flung across the map with the grapple. With the grapple. So this thing got hit in two ways, basically, or several ways is what I'm trying to say. It's worse at fighting, it's worse at traveling, and you're much more vulnerable when traveling. So this is a very, very significant nerf. As I said, prior to this, the grapple was probably the best fighting mobility in the game, and it was also probably the fastest traveling mobility item in the game. If you wanted to get around the map, if you wanted to chase somebody, if you wanted to get away from somebody, the grapple was probably the best at all of that, provided you could do the cancel effectively. So even with this nerf, this is a very impactful nerf, and I think the weapon got noticeably worse. I still think it's a good mobility item, but I would rather use the base boost gloves, and the base boost gloves are going to be my preferred mobility item. It's still solid for traveling around the map. It used to be far and away the best. Now it's good. As far as repositioning and fights go, it's something you can do. It's not like it's just impossible to reposition in fights. You are more vulnerable now than before. But every mobility in the game, aside from the Mist Cape, you can get shot while using. So it's not like every other mobility you're invincible, and then this one you can get shot. It's not the case. Every mobility item you can get shot using. I think this is one of the easier ones to shoot somebody using now, depending on the angle and how high up they are. And that's something that's very important when it comes to using this well now is where you look when shooting the grapple matters a lot. Because if you get really high up and then deploy your glider, you're going to be gliding for quite a while, and that's all time where enemies can get shots on you, and you can't really defend yourself well, and you can't really move that much while gliding in terms of your side to side movement or how fast you're going. So if you're in a hot situation, I think it's best to grapple onto things that don't really lift your character that high up. So like shooting at the ground, you'll still glide for a little bit, but it's not like you're going to be going as high and gliding for as long. If you shoot your grappler at like the top of a tall building or a mountain and you get very high up, you're gliding for a while. But if you're looking at like the ground somewhere where you want to go, or like, you know, part of a tree, part of a house, you can still get a decent amount of movement from it while not being forced into the glider animation for as long, which is going to make you harder to track. So like how you use this in those hot situations, I think matters a good amount in terms of like where you aim and how high you get. If you just want to use it to travel when there's like no pressure on you at all, then sure, getting decently high is nice because then you can glide for a while. And if there's no pressure on you, then gliding is fine. But if you know you're in a fight or you know you're about to get into a fight, I think the longer you're in that glider animation, the worse off you are going to be. And you can still use this glider to push people or like get aggressive on people. You just kind of need to do it differently. With the cancel, you could just grapple right on people's heads and pump them. And now that would be a terrible playstyle because your glider is out, and then that's time where the enemy can just shoot at you and you can't really shoot back. And then you need to swap to your weapon as well. So if you wanted to use this to like get aggressive on somebody or push them, I think it's more ideal to like kind of grapple to a piece of cover near the enemy or around the enemy and then play from there. Instead of just going right at them, you go to like a piece of cover and then you play the close range fight from there. And I think that the core medallion or the dashes that you can get from the dash sprite combo pretty well with this, because you could kind of grapple to a piece of cover near the enemy and then dash onto them, or, you know, sprint jump with the core medallion onto them. And this is a better way to engage, I think, than just gliding straight at them. And the core medallion was buffed in the same update that removed the grappler trick. So the sprint jump you get out of the core medallion now is it sends you further and it sends you there faster. So it's a bit better for like pushing enemies like that. And on top of that, you'll be invisible while doing so. So I still think people are so dire when it comes to whether items are useful or like nerfed or ruined. But I still think it's okay at pushing people. It's something you can get aggressive on people with. You just have to do so differently. Instead of going right at them, you go to somewhere near them, a piece of cover, some sort of position of advantage, and then play the fight from there, rather than just grappling onto them, pumping them, swap back to your grapple again, pump them. Like the way the grapple kind of cancel cycle playstyle was a thing, that is gone, but that doesn't mean this item is useless, and I still think it is quite good. It seems like often whenever something gets nerfed to a decent degree in Fortnite, people act like it's useless and just like the item is terrible now and there's no redeemable qualities about it. And this change was a large downgrade for the grappler, but I still think it's, you know, solid. It's a good item. It has uses. It has merit. You kind of need to change how you play. Some of the things that made it good or some of the ways that it was used in the past are just completely gone now. But that doesn't mean it's a terrible, useless item. Before this change, I probably would have had the grapple at like an S tier item. And after the change, I think I would have it at like B tier, maybe B minus. So it's like a definite downgrade, but it's not the worst mobility item in the game. And I don't think it's completely useless. One huge change about how I feel about it is like before, a lot of people would land on the Robin NPC to buy this right away, and I thought that made sense. That's not really a playstyle I like having. I don't like landing at just really scuffed locations like that and just kind of flipping the game. I didn't like landing at the black markets and Lawless either. I'd rather just land at a POI and loot and then play from there. Now I don't really think it makes sense to land on Robin. Like, you could still do whatever you want. If you love the grappler, you know, good for you. But I think the benefit or the value the grappler provides is not something that's worth just like flipping the entire game on anymore. It's good, but it's not great. And so I don't really see myself wanting to land on it. And I think there's just less of when other people were doing it, it made sense to me before, even though I personally didn't want to do it. Now it just doesn't really make sense to me to be doing that with how the grappler currently plays and how effective it currently is. Before, it was something where like if you had this in the hands of somebody who is really good at using it, that was something that was going to have a large impact on them winning the game. It was very good in the right hands. It's still good, but it's not like massively improving your odds of winning anymore, I think. And that's just kind of how I feel about it. My preferred mobility item is definitely still going to be the base boost gloves. I would take the grappler if I happened upon it for double mobility, especially if I had like blue gloves. If I have blue gloves and I'm presented with the option to run gloves and the grappler, I'm probably going to do that. But if I have mythic gloves already or purple gloves, I'm probably just going to use gloves and then the scanner and just run one mobility item, because for me, typically the base boost gloves are enough for mobility for what I need. And I really like having the scanner. I think the scanner is incredibly overpowered this season, and it makes dealing with a lot of players that maybe would be inconvenient to deal with otherwise, it makes dealing with them really easily. So I like having, you know, single mobility in the scanner this season. As I said, I would maybe be inclined to run double mobility if I had no base boost gloves or I only had like low rarity gloves. But my preferred setup now is definitely just going to be the mythic base boost gloves and the recon scanner. Even though I think the grappler is good, I don't think it's great anymore. But that is going to be it for this video. As always, if you guys did find this to be helpful, informative, or interesting, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more. Comment down below what you think of the grappler after this change, and let me know if you think it is a good thing or a bad thing it was changed, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.